Cigarettes could go up $1 a pack, and Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker pays a visit to Springfield. We'll talk about it next on Capitol View. Welcome to Capitol View, the show where we talk about state government, sometimes the federal government, and how it just might affect your life. I'm Bernie Schoenburg from the State Journal-Register. A lot going on in Springfield with legislative session and other events going on. And here to talk about it today, a little broader perspective than just under the dome. As usual, Bob Gough is here. He's editor of QuincyJournal.com and brings in a good knowledge of Illinois, but also a different part of the viewing area than some of us who hang around by the new and old state capitals. Welcome back, Bob.
Thanks, Bernie.
And Patrick Yeagle is here, staff reporter for Illinois Times in Springfield.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Well, I mentioned as we opened the show, $1 a pack for cigarettes. This is one of the parts of a proposal that Governor Pat Quinn says would help pay for basically $2.7 million hole that they need to either cut away or fill it. I guess the Republicans all thought it was going to be all cuts, and then when the governor said he wants to raise revenue too, some of them didn't like that. But in Medicaid expenses, they have to try to cut back $2.7 billion in Medicaid expenses because it's a major expense of the state, and of course the state still can't pay its bills. How is this going over as the governor unveils this plan?
Well, in a border community like Quincy, where many people cross the river to go get their cigarettes and their gasoline already, this would of course certainly be a death blow, and they would lose even more revenue.
Are you speaking for the business association, or?
I'm speaking as somebody who's lived in Quincy for 20 years and the mass exodus across the river for the smokers. Gotcha. I mean, you have the discount smoke shops set up over there. You have gas stations set up right there you can look across the river and see gas stations that have gas at about an average of 16 cents a gallon.
See what I mean
cheaper.
About this out of Springfield perspective?
Exactly.
That's perfect. Yeah.
But there's also, I know there's been some discussion on some legislation to try to have a way to soften that blow, where river communities maybe wouldn't have to pay as much because that would help them be more competitive. I just don't see that going anywhere, because I really don't see the people who don't live in the river community saying, they're going to say, hey, you got to pay your fair share.
I guess the question is, where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
Of course, the other part of this whole equation, this is just one part of a series of ideas. The governor had set up like a legislative commission to try to come up with ideas. They didn't really reach consensus, so the governor himself had a press conference and put out a statement announcing his own plan. And it also includes, I think it's an 8% cut to hospitals and other providers, which, guess what, the associations that that represent those providers don't like that idea. They would also cut back some services. I think dental is on the chopping block there for Medicaid recipients. So it's difficult. It's difficult choices. We had Rod Blagojevich when he was governor, try to give everybody everything and increase eligibility, allow more people to get Medicaid. But Medicaid is either the most expensive thing in the budget, or second, I think it might be it and education are the biggies. Patrick, difficult problems. Where do they go?
That's one of those issues that, there's no really easy answer. And the problem with the cigarette tax idea is that it doesn't really solve the structural budget problem. We have these growing pension payments. We have the Medicaid problem, but trying to tax cigarettes doesn't take care of the core issues of why those costs are going up. So, say what you will about smokers and going across the river, that doesn't really address the main problem.
Okay, well, it's a difficult situation, and yeah, obviously we have so many problems with the budget. There was also, pensions, as you mentioned, is the other big problem, because there are still battles as to if the state can change pensions for existing workers from here on out, so that remains to be seen. I will say on the Medicaid thing and on the $1 a pack, Tom Cross, the Republican leader of the House, already put out a statement saying that he's opposed to it. Republicans don't want tax increases as part of the package, but I also heard President Cullerton, the president of the Senate, Democrat from Chicago, saying that they've already passed this before in the Senate with no Republican support, and they think it's a worthwhile thing. And it also, he said 18% of the people in Illinois smoke, so it only affects a part of the population. And obviously, I think the Lung Association and folks like that like it, because anything that is an incentive not to smoke is,
sure,
is a good thing for health reasons and life reasons. So we will see where this goes. You talk about pensions, you talk about employee benefits, and it reminds you of what just happened in Springfield in the last week, where for some unknown reason, Doug Whitley, the CEO of the State Chamber of Commerce, decided to invite Scott Walker. Well, it's not unknown. He said it was to try to bring in another perspective of how to cut a difficult state budget, you know, and keep things in control. Scott Walker, the embattled governor of Wisconsin, first termer, up for a recall election in his own state on June 5th, came to speak to a combined legislative conference of the National Federation of Independent Business and the State Chamber of Commerce, two business groups. In the streets downtown Springfield, I'd estimate maybe a couple of thousand people. It was about 1,000 when I walked in. I got there early so that all the security wouldn't keep me out. It wasn't that bad, but I wondered. And you know, there was a standing ovation or two for, or at least some good applause for Scott Walker, who talked about all that he's done in his state, but also talked about we're not going to let those union bosses bring in, you know, they're just putting on a show to protect their own interests. And the people mostly from unions on the street didn't want to hear that. So good idea or bad idea that Scott Walker came to Illinois to give this talk, and does it advance Illinois' move to try to get its budget under control?
Well, I mean, I think it can't hurt. I mean, it's always good to, you know, to hear what somebody who has really elevated himself to a national position like Walker has. And obviously, he was speaking in front of a friendly crowd of the Illinois Chamber and the NFIB. The people who work with me over at Star Radio in Quincy, we sent a crew over there, and they filmed it, and they listened to it and listened to what he had to say, and said that he was, you know, he spoke without notes, he was off the cuff, he was pretty sharp, and what he had to say obviously rang true with that audience. Now, obviously, with the folks outside, it didn't, but it remains to be seen on where he's going to be, you know, 6 weeks from now. Obviously, with the improvements that Wisconsin has made in its finances, it's certainly something that Illinois can look at with a little bit of envy because of the situation that the state's in right now.
Patrick, this is, well, we have, you know, we often see some strength of unions in Illinois, and certainly the state government workers, and AFSCME, the main union, they really don't like Scott Walker and what he's done by taking away collective bargaining rights for employees up in Wisconsin.
Well, they were very vehement about. They used some, I think, very strong language in condemning him, and I think they brought up some valid points that the issues Illinois is facing are not the issues that Wisconsin is facing. We don't have a budget deficit for the same problem that Wisconsin does. So him coming here to, you know, give us advice on how to fix our problems doesn't necessarily jive with what I think we know about our own problem. And you know, I think it was the Illinois Senate Democrats who brought up the point in a very sarcastic and I thought funny press release that Wisconsin's deficit was actually a 2-year deficit, and so they used basically some budget tricks to make it look like
right.
They
Yeah, that was John
leaps.
Cullerton, the Senate president,
right.
who actually used to, and when he was in the Illinois House at the end of the session and during lull times, he used to give like 20-minute stand-up comedy. He's actually pretty good at this. But yeah, he put out a funny press release saying, sarcastically thanking the governor for coming in and talking about the chaos in Wisconsin to show us how calm we are in comparison to Wisconsin. Of course, he was probably talking about all of the union demonstrators that filled the Statehouse in Madison, Wisconsin for, what was it, a month or so.
Big camp out.
But then, you know, Walker got his way and they passed the bill that he wanted. So yeah, there are certainly questions about whose numbers are right.
Yeah.
You know, the unions here will tell you, well, class sizes is higher there. And then Walker said from the podium, well, you know, we saw before they took it off their website, teachers think everything is better than it has been in years in the classroom in Wisconsin. So, you know, from this far away, it has to be kind of he said, she said. Sorry about that. But it certainly generated discussion. Doug Whitley said he just wanted to, the head of the State Chamber of Commerce, said he just wanted to generate discussion and maybe bring in some outside ideas. Well, I don't know, having been through this whole thing, if it poisoned the waters for negotiation in Illinois or not. I thought that it might beforehand. Having seen Walker, and as you say, Bob, you know, he was a good speaker. He didn't quite fit the caricatures that some people have made of him as this
right. There were no horns and cloven hooves.
Right. You know, and yet he did use some very pointed language, particularly about unions and their bosses and all this stuff, which certainly caters to, even as one of the senators there said to me afterwards, he was giving red meat to the audience. This is the kind of thing that this group would want. I will also note that one of my assignments that day was to talk to people in the crowd. There was a whole table of the Springfield area Tea Party, so it wasn't all like business groups just there. And then other people I talked to were from Southern Illinois, from Bethalto. There was a retired teacher. She had never belonged to a union, and she thought that unions are bad, and this was the right thing to do. So they also helped fill the room with some people who were naturally going to like Walker's message. So we'll see where that goes as Illinois continues to try to fight its way out of its deficit, and union rights are a big deal, and there's a big tradition of that. So we'll see. I will transition now into something federal. Tim Johnson is a longtime member of Congress for 10 years, or almost 12, and he was in the Illinois House for 20 years. He's from Urbana. He was even on the Urbana City Council, I think, when I was in college at U of I in the 70s. But he won a new term, and he won a primary for a new term, and then he dropped out of the race. And there's been no great explanation other than he wants to spend more time with his new great-grandkids or grandkids. And this is odd because what it does is it's going to be 14 Republican county chairmen newly elected as of this last week who will get to cast weighted votes to determine who the Republican nominee for that will be. Jerry Clark is a former chief of staff to Tim Johnson, and there have been some allegations from one of the other possible candidates, Kyle McCarter, a Republican state senator from Lebanon, Illinois, saying, well, it looks like it was just a deal so that Jerry Clark could be named by Tim Johnson. And I think nobody has confirmed that, but that's what Kyle McCarter told the Champaign-Urbana News-Gazette. Mike Tate of Springfield is in the running and has presented his credentials to some of the chairmen. He's a former state representative from Decatur who runs an insurance industry organization. Rodney Davis, who is a top aide to John Shimkus, one of them. Jim Watson, state representative from Jacksonville, doesn't live in the district but could move into it, and said that he is interested. State Senator Sam McCann, we're not sure how interested he is, but he's been talked about. Dan Brady, state representative from Bloomington and former coroner up there, are among the names that we have heard. Bob, where is this all going, and why did Tim Johnson do this to us?
Well, let's just look back to the 17th district when we had this happen not too long ago when Lane Evans did the same thing.
When he was ill and then got nominated?
He waited until after the primary. I mean, and let's
Is that when he announced that he was, no, he had announced that he had Parkinson's before.
He announced he had Parkinson's before, but he ran again. He went ahead and ran. And then afterwards he said, okay, I can't go on. And everybody, it looked like he had just set it up so Phil Hare could succeed him.
Who was a top staffer for him and who became congressman until he got beat by Bobby Schelling the next go-round.
And our Senator John Sullivan was in that mix as well.
State senator.
Yes, to succeed Hare, but to succeed Evans. But again, it looked like it was all organized, orchestrated, what have you, so Phil Hare could take that job. This looks kind of like that again, from my perspective. So we got a Democrat who did it one time and a Republican who did it one time to do it again. So obviously this is a bipartisan situation. To me, it would have been much better for the congressman to say, I'm not going to run, and have the primary, and let's have it decided by the people as it should be. Instead, it's going to be the all of the county chairmen who are going to get together in the smoke-filled room and do this.
Okay, well, they're trying not to have it smoke-filled, which is why John Parrott, for example, the McLean County Republican chairman, had a meeting of his precinct committeemen a week ago and invited as many candidates as wanted to come to speak, and I think 6 of them did, and 5 of them stayed for questions. One of them had to go. Mr. Clark had to take a conference call or something for his Army Reserve duty or something, it was said. But that still is not, they may say they don't want the smoke-filled room, but it's still going to be a lot of negotiating going on, and it takes it out of the hands of the voters. Yes. So perhaps you say the Democrats did the same thing, but does that make, is it?
It doesn't make it right at all. Neither side should do it. I mean, both, if I can't believe that Congressman Johnson all of a sudden decided he knew this before the primary, and I'm sure.
Can you read the man's mind?
I can. If I had to bet, if I had to hook him up to something, I would bet very heavily that yes.
Do they let reporters do that?
No, not in this country. Okay. But it just looks bad. He should have abdicated beforehand and had a primary. Again, this stinks.
David Gill Gill is the Democrat who apparently has won the primary. He ran against Tim Johnson in the current 15th district, which is considered like 70% Republican. 3 times he ran against Tim Johnson, and each time he did a little better, but he always came up short. And he was hoping that this new district, the new 13th, which comes into Springfield and a lot of areas south of it as well, is the nominee. Now, he's for a system of national health care, a single payer. He's for gay marriage. He's kind of open about very liberal things. He talked a lot about the war on women when some Democrats were, and his opponent in the primary, Matt Gettin, the state's attorney of Greene County, was not. But Gill came out on top, it seemed, or by the results that we know so far. And the Republicans seem to think maybe they'll have an advantage here no matter who they get, because Gill is too liberal for Illinois, or for this part of Illinois. What do we think? Gill does, he kind of has his talk down after 4 terms. You know, I think that's what carried him over in this election against Gettin. Gettin was kind of a new candidate and wasn't very public, but Gill was very strong in his beliefs, which sometimes will carry even if people don't believe what you believe, or aren't necessarily on the same page on every issue. Any thoughts on where he's at?
Well, I think it depends a lot on who becomes the eventual Republican nominee. I mean, if it's somebody with really strong name recognition, a lot of support, you know, broad Republican support, maybe they'll have a chance. But if it's just some, you know, no-name person, it
or
may
a staff. I mean, it depends. You know, there are some people think maybe it should be someone who's been elected already because they've been through it. But on the other hand, some of the congressional staff folks, like a Jerry Clark or a Rodney Davis, they really know the federal issues well, and they know the federal bureaucracy because that's what they've had to deal with. But that doesn't always translate on, you know, into campaign style. So we'll have to see. And some of us reporters thought that the race was over with the primary, and it wasn't. So Mr. Parrott up from McLean County indicated that I think by mid-May or so, we might have a Republican candidate, and we'll see how that goes. Speaking of Chairman, one thing that they were waiting for was just this past week, every party organization like Sangamon County Democrats and Republicans, and then in all 102 counties had their county conventions following the March primary, where the new committeemen, or in Cook County, the township committeemen, whatever, elected new county chairs. So in Springfield, for example, Doris Turner, who's an alderman from Ward 3, became chair of the Democratic Party, and Rosemarie Long was the compromise candidate, and even though she had to overcome a late challenge from Kent Gray, who's on the Lincoln Land Community College Board, she became the Republican county chair, taking over for Tony Libri and putting some people at ease who thought it was time for Libri to ease to the side. And so Rosemarie Long will be one of those 14 who has a weighted vote to pick the new candidate for to replace Tim Johnson. I haven't heard her express an opinion yet. Bob, I understand in is it Adams County where there was a little bit of excitement as well? Right,
not on the Republican side where Jim Perry became the GOP chair. There was no drama there. But on the Democratic side, we had Ross Miller, who is the business representative for the Machinists Union, Local 822, is the chairman for the Adams County Democratic Party. Now, from what I've gathered from a couple of sources, you know, Mike McLean, who of course is from Quincy,
and a former state representative and current lobbyist,
noted
that
lobbyist.
We see in Springfield a lot.
Absolutely. He had another hand-picked candidate, and supposedly there was a deal cut where McLean's candidate was going to get the nod, and that did not happen. The votes were not counted, or people who said they were going to vote one way voted another way. This just happened last night, and I've actually been doing research on this as I was driving over from Quincy and burning up the time on the cell phone. So, but it apparently is a changing of the guard. The union sent out a memo, an internal memo that we got a hold of a couple of months ago that basically outlined their strategy that said, we're taking over the Adams County Democratic Party because over the last 6 years they've lost control of the city council, which they had held for since the 1950s.
Oh, have Republicans been taking over?
Yes, Republicans went from they had a 5. They were down 9-5. Then 2 years ago they bumped it to 7-7. Then last year they bumped it up, and they've taken a 10-4 advantage on the Quincy City Council. And we've got a mayoral election coming up. And it really looks like the Republicans have gained some momentum, especially when you look back to the last election and the numbers that Brady and Schilling and everybody did over there. I mean, Quincy still has the mayor. might change next year. The sheriff, the county clerk, the Democrats still have some seats, but the Republicans control the county board, and they also control the city council now.
Does this have anything to do with Tea Party strength there? Because I know that was when Phil Hare ended up losing to Bobby Schilling for Congress. Part of that was a Quincy meeting where the Tea Party kept attacking Phil Hare. Phil Hare reacted badly, and it was videotaped by an activist from Missouri who put it on the web.
Adam Sharp did that, and I was at that meeting when it happened. When he spoke to the people, and yes, there was certainly some Tea Party support that was instrumental in the takeover of the Quincy City Council. But along with that push by the Tea Party and the Republicans, the Democrats in Quincy and Adams County have really just become disorganized. A lot of the leadership, the Mike McLeans and Chuck Schultzes and those people, they've advanced.
Schultz was the mayor for many years.
Schultz was the mayor for 12 years. They have no new blood in the party, whereas the Republicans have a lot of energy and a lot of new blood, and it looks like the union in Quincy and Adams County is going to sort of step in and try to see what they can do. Interesting time.
I wanted to get to something, Patrick, I think you've been working on Illinois Times, something about the, they don't call it the Downstate Illinois Innocence Project anymore.
Correct.
They changed the name to Innocence Project. This, of course, is associated with University of Illinois Springfield, correct me as I go, working for a number of years trying to take on cases of people who were wrongly convicted, and Illinois, of course, became somewhat infamous in this way when George Ryan was governor. There were, I think it was 12 or so people who were on death row who were exonerated after DNA or other evidence came forward, and there's been a continuing move, and I know Scott Turow, the famous author, was in town speaking at a fundraising dinner and got an award from that organization. So just a status update on something that is really kind of a significant part of the Springfield community here.
They're going through a lot of big changes, expanding their scope. They having dropped downstate from their name, they're now just the Illinois Innocence Project, and that signifies a broader look. They were getting a lot of requests from Northern Illinois for them to look at their cases, and they realized if we pair with SIU down in Carbondale, NIU up in DeKalb, and the U of I in Champaign-Urbana, that's all three public law schools in the state. So now they have a major growth in terms of expertise and manpower. They've also added an attorney and a part-time attorney.
Have they been getting grant funding from foundations, that kind of thing?
So they're going through a lot of changes, a lot of transformations, and they're even going to be doing some lobbying. I'm not sure what their time frame is on that, but they're hoping to do some lobbying to change some of the core problems that have been causing wrongful convictions in Illinois. So
right. Well, I know we now videotape confessions are required in what used to be called capital cases, because Illinois, of course, Pat Quinn, the current Democratic governor, did away. Legislature did, and then he did away with the death penalty in Illinois, and I think now there are 17 states. So it's and then of course when we did away with the death penalty, that also did away with some of the funding for the lawyers who are were helping the death row inmates, and so some of those lawyers have lost their jobs. So I'm not exactly sure where that all is, but I did hear Scott Turow's speech on WSEC, and when they replayed it, and he did talk about that. It's not only capital cases. There are so many other people in prison. It's an indication of wrongful convictions in other places. Down the chain of crimes, and difficult problem that we're all looking for justice, I guess. Speaking of innocence or not, I'll bring up the name of Derek Smith without casting judgment. But Derek Smith, for better or worse, is a recently named state representative who was the federal authorities in Chicago say he was caught up in a sting where he allegedly took like $7,000 in cash in exchange for what he thought was writing a letter for a daycare center that wanted a state grant of like $50,000. So, and he has not resigned from the House. So where does this sit? Because some people have called, including I think the governor, Jesse White, who is his political mentor, called for him to quit. He's not quitting, which some people think gives him leverage as he continues to negotiate with the feds or head toward trial. And as they're considering throwing him out of the legislature. So where are we, Bob?
We have another hearing coming up on Monday, I do believe. Jill Tracy, of course, from Quincy, is on the
State Representative.
Jill Tracy's on that committee, and she said that even though the indictment has come down, that doesn't change anything. The legislature is still going to move full speed ahead and continue with their hearings. I think they've had one, and I think this is going to be the second one they'll have on Monday.
Okay, and he came down to Springfield. I was not there, but I heard some of the chatter. I think it was public radio where people were Representative Smith, and he just went back on the House floor where reporters cannot follow. Wasn't really taking interviews at that time, so we do move on. Gambling is a continuing, well, obviously, sometimes it works out, although the odds are bad. We have a couple of things. We have a couple named Merle and Patricia Butler, of Red Bud, who won, I guess after taxes, $111 million, is one of 3 winning tickets in the, what lottery game was that?
Mega Millions.
Yeah. Mega Millions. And they just came forward this week, and there are some connections because Patricia Tomlinson Butler is originally from Springfield, we're told, and I guess there's a Quincy connection too.
Yes, there's a Quincy alderman whose wife is a first cousin, so
everybody
there you
wants
go.
Yeah, it depends how this, you know, their lives are now in a fishbowl and somewhat ruined. Not every state makes their lottery winners come forward. Apparently Illinois does. Right. Good idea or bad idea?
Well, I mean, it's public money, right? Is it public money? Is it considered
I'm not
public
sure
money?
how. I think it is. It's certainly a public program, and it certainly promotes the program to have these people come forward, because otherwise you lose the press pop, the national press pop of yesterday of this Vietnam veteran and his wife who were retired and are now doing this.
And of course, the lotteries dumped so many millions into education that was, of course, put in one pocket and taken out of the other.
Well, yes, but it still goes to the Common School Fund.
It's public money, so absolutely the winner should come forward.
And we only have, I think, about 30 seconds, but Patrick, more gambling, expanded gambling is on the table again. Any chance the legislature will do it this time in a way the governor can agree to it, because he still doesn't want slots at racetracks, and the mayor of Chicago, I think there's something he doesn't want that's part of the package as well.
It's anybody's say, but I think a lot of legislators are wary of doing something more. I mean, we don't even have video gaming installed yet.
And it's and 3 years ago they said let's do it.
Exactly.
Understood.
So it's anybody's guess.
Something to keep watching, and I'm sure you all will, and we will. Bob Gough and Patrick Yeagle, thanks for your help. Thank you for watching. I'm Bernie Schoenburg, and we'll see you next time on Capitol View.